Just reading out an article I found on Islam4today.com, just because it's interesting, okay, and I think this is something which is missing from the current debate which has been raised by Thunderfoot. Who are the moderate Muslims? The term moderate Muslim is not only becoming important in the post-September the 11th discussion of Islam and the West, it is also becoming highly contested. What do we really mean when we brand someone as a moderate Muslim? Indeed, the more interesting question is, what does the word mean to Westerns looking to in Islam and to Muslims looking out from within Islam? As one who identifies himself strongly with the idea of a liberal Islam and also advocates moderation in the manifestation and expression of Islamic policies, I believe it is important that we flush out this political identity. In an era when we are determined by what we do politically, it is imperative that we clarify what the "we" in politics means. American media uses the term moderate Muslim to indicate a Muslim who is either pro-Western in her politics or is being self-critical in her discourse. Therefore, both President Karzai of Afghanistan and Professor Khalid Abul Fadl of UCLA wear this cap with felicity. The former for his politics, the latter for his ideas. Muslims in general do not like the term, understanding it to indicate an individual who has politically sold out to the other side in some internal intellectual debates. The term moderate Muslim is used pejoratively to indicate a Muslim who is more secular and less Islamic than the norm, which varies across communities. In America, a moderate Muslim is one who peddles a softer form of Islam, the Islam of John Esposito and Karen Armstrong, is willing to coexist peacefully with peoples of other faiths and is comfortable with democracy and the separation of politics and religion. Both Western media and Muslims do a disservice by branding some Muslims as moderates on the basis of their politics. These people should generally be understood as opportunists and self-serving. Most of the moderate regimes in the Muslim world are neither democratic nor manifest a softer side of Islam. That leaves intellectual positions as the criteria for determining who is a moderate Muslim, and especially in comparison to whom, since moderate is a relative term. Now I'm going to repeat that sentence again for you guys, okay? That leaves intellectual positions as the criteria for determining who is a moderate Muslim. I'm reading on now. Both Muslims and the media are generally on the mark when they identify moderate Muslims as reflective, self-critical, pro-democracy and human rights, and closet secularists. But who are they different from, and how? I believe that moderate Muslims are different from militant Muslims, even though both of them advocate the establishment of societies whose organizational principle is Islam. The difference between moderate and militant Muslims is their methodological orientation and the primordial normative preferences which shape their interpretation of Islam. For moderate Muslims, Ijihad is the preferred method of choice for social and political change, and military jihad the last option. So there's two different forms of action there. For militant Muslims, military jihad is the first option, and Ijihad is not an option at all. Now, this is just my commentary here, because what Thunderfoot was doing was talking about these militant Muslims who only believe in military jihad and don't believe in whatever this other thing called Ijihad is. Okay, so Thunderfoot has actually painted all Muslims or tarred all Muslims with the same brush, saying that they're all this military jihad type and not this Ijihad type, which is rather strange. And he's also provided this complete straw man argument that there is this thing called the age of religion as opposed to the age of reason, which is part of Thunderfoot's own obsession, and I would even argue fundamentalism. Anyway, I'll read on with this article. Ijihad, nowadays understood, is a juristic tool that allows independent reasoning to articulate Islamic law on issues where textual sources are silent. The unstated assumption being when texts have spoken reasoning must be, the unstated assumption being when texts have spoken, reason must be silent. But increasingly moderate Muslim intellectuals see Ijihad as the spirit of Islamic thought that is necessary for the validity of Islamic ideas and Islamic civilization. So that's the spirit of, the various holy books and the rest of it, not necessarily literalism, which is what Thunderfoot was going on about. Without Ijihad, Islamic thoughts and Islamic civilization fall into decay. For moderate Muslims, Ijihad is a way of life, which simultaneously allows Islam to reign supreme in the heart and in the mind, to experience unfettered freedom of thought. A moderate Muslim is therefore one who cherishes freedom of thought, whilst recognizing the essential necessity of faith. She aspires for change, but through the power of mind and not through planting mines. So there is a strong ideological difference and methodological difference between the military fundamentalist jihadists rather than this Ijihadist. Moderate Muslims aspire for a society, a city of virtue that will treat all people with dignity and respect. There will be no room for political or normative intimidation. Individuals will aspire to live an ethical life because they recognize its desirability. Communities will compete in doing good, and politics will seek to encourage good and forbid evil. They believe the internalization of the message of Islam can bring about the social transformation necessary for the establishment of the virtuous city. The only arena in which moderate Muslims permit excess is idealism. So basically, that doesn't really sound too bad or too negative. I mean, yes, it's still about enforcing Islam for the purposes of social change, but it's still doing it with freedom of thought, which is actually really rather positive. Okay, I'll read on. Today, in relationship between Islam and the rest is getting increasingly worse. Muslim militants are sowing seeds of poison and hatred between Muslims and the rest of humanity by committing egregious acts of violence in the name of Islam. In this precarious environment, it is important that everyone finds and nurtures the many wonderful examples of moderate Muslims one can still find. Chandra Muzaffar in Malaysia, Tariq Ramadan in Europe, Maulana Widukin Khan, and Asghar Ali, engineer in India, and there's a few other names here, okay. These people are committed to their jihad of struggle to revive the spirit of Ijihad. Fortunately, the tradition is alive globally and needs the support and the attention of all who aspire for peace and understanding. So, what has Thunderfoot done? Alright, he's used a very extreme straw man argument against all religious people and against all Muslims. He's not focusing on anything of what moderate Muslims are actually about. And instead he's got this idea of age of reason as opposed to age of religion. When 98% of the American population believe in some form of spiritual existence or possibly supreme being of some form. This is much more the age of religion now, with computers, with Windows 7 and all the rest of that, and with this camera that I'm using right now, than it is the era of what he calls reason. Thunderfoot is actually wrong in his arguments and wrong in his methodology here. Alright, and I think we've got to try and understand that.